Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables, sponsored by Analyst Depot. I am your host, Ashley. This is my co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you?
Just dandy, recovering from a bout of COVID, as are you.
I know. We both got COVID at the same time. We did take a little bit of a hiatus, a couple weeks off, traveling for the holidays, and then we both got COVID last week. So we were on the COVID list. How are you feeling better?
Absolutely. If I get into a coughing fit, I have a single cough drop left to get me through this episode. But here's hoping I won't need it. But how about yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm only left with like a cough and some congestion. The first few days, oh my God, I felt like my body was dying. That was not fun, but feeling better now, thank God, and happy to be back. I missed hanging out with you and all of our viewers, but yeah, happy to be back and ready to jump into it. We have a lot to talk about today. The injury report, as always, some playoff picture news, and a lot of news around the NFL. So we'll jump into it with our injury report. A lot of news for the quarterbacks this week. One of the biggest ones, Baker Mayfield, his season's done. He's having surgery on his shoulder, which is a little bit overdue if you ask around. He's been beaten up for several weeks, not only with the shoulder, but with other injuries too. So he's done for the season, and I don't know about his future with the Browns. That's something to still be considered.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll probably move on from him this offseason unless they can get, the Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers type player that you expect to be available. But
yeah,
it's a rough season.
Case Keenum will be starting. Joe Burrow, who missed the last few plays of the game this past week with a knee injury, will not be playing this week. They're gonna rest him before playoffs. Smart move. So now that's the Bengals and the Browns are playing each other. So it's the dual two teams with backup quarterbacks playing. Drew Lock seems to have injured his shoulder. I haven't had much news about the severity, but that's tough with Teddy Bridgewater is now fully placed on IR. He has missed already the last 2 games with a belief concussion, and his season is now done. Kirk Cousins did not play this week. He tested positive for COVID. He is unvaccinated. Lamar Jackson did not play again this week with the ankle injury that's been bothering him. And they didn't say if he's going to be back this week or not. That kind of wasn't clarified yet.
Well, John Harbaugh said that he has a chance to play, but he's also said that every week since he started missing time. So
he's been listed as questionable every week, and again, he is listed as questionable. Jimmy Garoppolo missed last week's game. He has returned to practice this week, but he is limited in practice. And Mike Glennon of the New York Giants, who was already filling in for Daniel Jones, has a wrist injury that requires surgery, and his season is over. It has been a terrible year to be a Giants quarterback. On to running backs. Ronald Jones was injured late in the third quarter with an ankle injury. He is now in a walking boot. That's a tough spot for the Bucs to be in, with Leonard Fournette already being hurt, but that's something to really keep an eye on. Michael Carter had a concussion. Damian Harris left the game with a hamstring injury, which is a re-aggravation. He's been dealing with that hamstring injury for the entirety of December, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a while. I don't know the last time he played like a full game and was healthy. I mean, he missed a couple games before this, so.
Yeah, and I'm sure that partly, he might have been able to stay in. I mean, the Patriots blew out the Jags by 47 points, I believe. So that could factor into it a little bit too. Alex Collins was placed on IR of Seattle from his lingering abdominal injury, and Joe Mixon tested positive for COVID and will not play against the Browns this week. Lots of news. Wide receivers, Michael Gallup tore his ACL. That's so bad. He is in a contract year. There was a lot of talk about him. There was a lot of talk about him going a lot of places, and he was looking really, really good this year. And now he is out with a torn ACL. That's a really, really tough for him. Adam Thielen had ankle surgery and will be out for the rest of the season. A lot of surgeries this past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and a lot of them have been somewhat like overdue. I mean, kind of like you said with Baker Mayfield. I mean, Adam Thielen's been dealing with this for a while. He tried coming back. Didn't work.
Yeah. Yep. For tight ends, Kyle Pitts suffered a hamstring injury. He was kind of in and out of the game during the second half. He didn't practice today. It's something for a little bit of concern, not too much concern. Again, just to refresh, Wednesdays will usually be the day most players take off. So if he's a little bit injured and could play, he might still take today off anyway. And Ricky Seals-Jones had a neck injury. It was pretty scary. He tried to catch the ball and landed on a cameraman. He left the game in a neck brace and on a backboard. They say he's fine. Coach said he's fine, which is he really dodged a bullet. And for defense, special teams, and online, the only one I put on here for today is that Micah Parsons is placed on the COVID list, which is tough for the Cowboys. He is a key player for them, so that will be interesting if he plays or not with the new COVID rules.
I mean, in a game that likely won't matter.
Yeah,
it could be worse.
Exactly.
I mean, you're seeing that with the Eagles as well. They added what looks like half their starting lineup to the COVID list the other day.
Yep.
But it's only seeding at this point.
Exactly. And we do have a decent amount of good news. Justin Fields will start this week after missing the last 2 games with an ankle injury. I have a quote here that I wanted to share. Quote, Chicago Bears QB Justin Fields said that he could sit out and not play Sunday, but one of the reasons why he wanted to go out there and play is because he wants to compete with his teammates that might not be here next season. So big team guy, Justin Fields. And Derrick Henry has been activated. Derrick Henry is going to make his playoff return. That's huge. And even bigger of an activation is Cam Akers from the Los Angeles Rams is now activated after tearing his Achilles in, what was it?
Like
July?
The preseason, it's training camp rather.
Yeah, in training camp, which is phenomenal. Like there was talk that he wasn't even going to be back until mid next season, and now he's back for the playoff run that the Rams are going to make, and not a day too soon. I mean, they needed his help, so that I think will be great for the Rams. I'm interested to see that he will make. Sean McVay said he will make his debut this week against the 49ers. So I'm interested to see how he looks, because that was a huge talk of conversation, during the season was, can somebody come back from an ACL injury? Because most of the data we have, which is not much, Achilles, most of the data we have of people coming back from torn Achilles, which is not much data, isn't great. So I'm interested to see. It should be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest question there is really, it's just not, it's never really been, will they come back? It's how effective are they when they get back? How efficient will they be? Mm-hmm. Because we've seen running backs come back from Achilles injuries. There's just hasn't been a ton of examples of, them being extremely effective when they come back. Like Deandra Foreman, I think is kind of like the first name that comes to mind. He was pretty highly touted coming out. He was a very interesting prospect, and he tore his Achilles early into his NFL career, and you really just started seeing him resurfacing for the first time this season, which I don't even know how many years removed. You see it at other positions occasionally. I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Jason Peters, former Eagles left tackle, and I think currently with the Bears, who he either tore the same Achilles twice, or he tore both of his Achilles. The second one had to do with a segue. That's all I remember.
Nice.
But it's definitely possible. We've just never seen it with a position like running back, where so much is dependent on your plant foot and the weight and the way you have to, your burst. So it'll just be interesting to see, will he be the guy that we knew before? And if he is, how long will it take for him to get there?
Yep, exactly. Well, that wraps up our injury report. I'm glad we do have a decent amount of good news, and especially 3 huge key players. There is some more good news, a lot of people coming off the COVID list, but those were 3 big ones we really wanted to talk about. But why don't you bring us into our news, our first, you want to do the first one? Go ahead. You can let us know.
Yeah. Okay. So this sucks, but obviously you've all heard the news by now, but rest in peace, John Madden, legend, announcer, actually drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, which I didn't even know until he passed. He was an announcer. He was a coach. He was a lot of people's gateway into the NFL and loving the game of football. I know personally, like growing up, I was a band nerd. I played the trumpet. I did not care the least bit about football. Started playing Madden, and I have a very vivid memory of arguing with my dad about who was better between Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. The entire basis of my argument was Peyton Manning because his overall was higher.
Yeah.
I cannot stress enough. I knew nothing about these players at the time. But Peyton Manning was a 99 and Tom Brady wasn't. So that was my argument. But rest in peace to an amazing person, an amazing announcer, coach, and just, the reason that a lot of us fell in love with football. So,
yep. And he was really, really a good person. So it is very sad. It was the end of 2021. 2021 sucked and took John Madden, but his legacy in football will forever be cemented. Like, he is, like you said, so many people segue into football, and the reason for such love and passion for the game for so many people, and really revolutionized football. So sad to see him go.
One of the announcers for whatever game I was watching on Sunday mentioned that there had been rumors of like changing the all-pro team to an all-Madden.
I did. Yep.
It's so dumb and I love it. Like,
I do.
that would make me incredibly happy. It means so little, but also is so cool and so incredible. Like, yeah, it's kind of like fantasy football in a way that it's just like, yeah, we understand it's not the NFL, but like, you see how serious players take it with having, Chad Johnson is now a Madden ratings person. Like, he'll go around all the games and just like, they love it. Like, they love knowing their overalls. It is so ingrained in the culture of football in a way that we've never really seen a video game or really any other form of media be in a sport like that. So really
several players will like tweet out and be like, what the hell happened to my overall? Like, come on, did you see this game? And then like at the Madden account and be like, you saw this game, right? Like, make sure you were watching. So it is really cool to see his impact on the sport as a whole. But yeah, sad. It's hard to segue out of this one, but another crazy piece of news from the NFL this week. Antonio Brown, our favorite guy who loves to make headlines. He
might still be with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, it might still be. So what happened was they were playing the Jets this week. The Jets were winning for the entirety of the game except for like the last play. And then all of a sudden some streaker, right? Like, it has to be a streaker shirtless in the end zone while the players are still on the field. No, it's Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown ripped off his pads, his jersey, his gloves, threw them into the stands, and jumped around in the end zone, like waving his hands around, trying to get the fans pumped up, and then left. Apparently, he got into an argument. The stories kind of keep changing that he wouldn't go. Arians says that Antonio Brown wouldn't go in the game. Antonio Brown said something about being hurt. He wasn't hurt. He was playing the whole game, whatever. So there was a tiff between Antonio Brown, the coaching staff, other players. Mike Evans tried to calm him down. So yeah, he halfway stripped, ran into the field while the players were still on the field. And then left, quit middle of the game. But
that's even more legendary than the Bills player that retired in halftime. During halftime legendary. I think it was a preseason game, but still.
Yep. Yeah, that guy, he literally just was like, I retire, texted his coach like, I retire. But this was nuts. The news that came out originally was Bruce Arians was like, he is not with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers anymore.
Yep.
And then Antonio Brown has not shown up on the waiver wire since. He is not officially released. He is still with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The news came out that the NFL itself, like the organization and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, were trying to figure out how to best proceed. But yeah, I don't know if it's a strategy thing that they like don't want any of their competitors to have AB, or if they are like trying to give him a second chance. I don't know.
I think it's really, I mean, reading between the lines a little bit, it seems to me like they're really just trying to figure out if they have to pay him. And they're trying to figure that out now. Basically by saying like, okay, did he break his contract? Did he break code of conduct? If so, how much do we owe him? Are we due to get any of it back? That kind of crap. And I'm assuming they're just trying to do that before they actually cut him. At this point, I would be shocked if like that has to be his last chance in the NFL.
It has to be.
Like,
it has to be.
I mean, I'm sure we've all said that at some point before.
Yeah.
But like, this is just unlike anything we've ever seen.
Yeah.
From it's not like it's his first strike either.
Yeah. And so many people have like made the case that like all of Antonio Brown's indiscretions have been off the field and this one wasn't, right? Like
very literally on the field. So
on the field in the end zone.
At least he's changing it up, I guess.
Yeah, really. Not with the chef or the massage therapist or anything like that. Now he's just stripping in the middle of the field. I really thought it was a streaker. I really thought it was like some crazy fan. Gino security almost tackled him. They thought
Yeah.
it was a fan who jumped on the field, but
Yeah, I mean, why
crazy.
wouldn't you think that? Why would you ever assume it's a member of a team? Like,
I don't know.
I guess unless it's Antonio Brown. Like,
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably normally a safe assumption that it's a streaker.
Yeah. Well, we did have another incident on the field. I'll jump ahead in our notes for a second. With players landing on the field and in the tunnel. At the Washington football team stadium, Jalen Hurts was literally almost collapsed upon, murdered by fans because the railing collapsed and like 7 of them fell down all at once over the tunnel. They were like reaching down to give him a high five, shake his hand, and it just collapsed and they all fell. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. It could have been so much worse. But yeah, that was scary. That video was scary.
Man, someone needs to hold Washington accountable. Like, it sounds so stupid to say, and I'm not just saying it because it's my quarterback, but like, everything about their organization kind of just sucks. Dan Snyder sucks. That he's not being held accountable for any of the crap that he's done.
Nope.
But on top of that, like, that stadium is garbage.
There's like poop water flowing in sometimes. You've heard about that?
It's not a good stadium.
No.
It is very not well taken care of. It's very due for an update. And it's like, dude, if you're gonna own this team and keep being such a crappy owner, like at least put money into it, so that way, literally, your fans and teams aren't in danger. Like, and no, don't go and blaming this on the fans, because if you're not building it to expect that, I've seen that at literally every game I've ever watched.
In every sport.
That should be the expectation. So it's ridiculous. Shout out to Jalen Hurts. He handled it really well, obviously in the moment. But also, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, he tweeted out a letter. I guess he probably also sent the letter. I don't know, but it was toward the NFL in Washington, basically saying like, okay, like, how are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? How are we going to hold them accountable? Because yeah, I'm fine, but I don't know if those fans are, like, and also I could have been very injured, and that's not safe for anyone. So.
Yeah. And I mean, and the Eagles are in the playoffs now. Like, if you lost your starting quarterback because the stadium wasn't up to code and fans fell on top of him, like, it could have been so much worse. So thank God it wasn't. But yeah, that was some scary news. Some other bad news. Raiders cornerback Nate Hobbs was arrested for DUI on Monday. This is now the second Raiders player to be arrested for DUI in the last handful of weeks. Obviously, Henry Ruggs murdered someone by driving under the influence, but Nate Hobbs is not expected to be punished at this time. The interim head coach says he's expected to play this week, but he was arrested on Monday for DUI.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that's ridiculous. After everything the Raiders have been through this season, specifically this season, it should be not that it shouldn't always be like this, but seriously, just it should be a no, just one and done. You're done. Yeah. He should not be playing this Sunday.
We can jump back to another piece of news, back to Washington football team. They are revealing a new name and new logo on February 2nd, which happens to be Groundhog Day. They did schedule it on Groundhog Day, but they're expected to release their new name. I know there was a lot of, they asked the fans and people who lived in Washington to give, name suggestions and stuff like that. So it should be interesting to see what they go with. Let's see what else. Do you have any ideas on what the name is?
Oh, what was that?
Do you have any ideas on what the new name is?
I mean, I think it's probably going to be something boring, like Commanders or stuff like that. But like, I really hope they just go totally out of the box. Yeah, like the Groundhogs.
Yeah,
that would
imagine that's why they scheduled it on Groundhog Day.
That would be incredible. The Washington Groundhogs. Yeah. Or like, I don't know, like, I love the Seattle Dragons. Big XFL guy, big Dragons fan. Just go for something fun. You suck. Your organization sucks. Just do something not stupid.
Yeah. Originally, one of the I don't remember the exact name that this was referencing, but they were talking about how, like, with the Browns, how they kind of create this atmosphere of like the dog pound and stuff like that. Like, how can we make it like super immersive, like something like that? So that was something that they were kind of looking for in a name, was something that they could kind of like theme it around. What?
By naming it after a human being.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the name of the Browns.
Yeah.
I get very passionate on that subject, and I don't like it.
Okay, so
The
we can
logo
move
is an
on. We can
orange
move on.
helmet.
Yeah.
Why isn't it at least a brown helmet?
No, I wish I knew. That their logo pin. I got into a fight with someone who was like, "This is the worst logo." The Seattle Kraken's logo. They hated the Seattle Kraken's logo, and I love it. And I was like, they were like, "This is the worst logo in all of sports." And I literally just replied with the Browns logo. I was like, "That is the worst logo in all of sports."
Yeah, I don't even think it's Seattle Kraken is fine. I don't care. They're the Kraken. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a
You're
cool
the
name,
Browns,
really.
which to begin with, not a great name. But then your logo is a football helmet. You suck. Everyone who makes your decisions suck. Find someone else. I guess they have.
Yeah.
They found like 1 billion people. It's been sold like 18 times. And for some reason, we're all attached to the Browns. I hate it.
Yeah.
We can move past this though, because
we can move on.
Yep.
So the NFL is actually considering. So I don't want to say they're thinking about moving it, but they're creating contingency plans for moving the Super Bowl. SoFi Stadium and all of LA was just put. Their mask policy was set to expire this week, and they extended the mask policy through February 15th, and the Super Bowl is February 13th. So one of the possible locations that they're looking towards is AT&T Stadium, which is the Cowboys stadium. They're looking to kind of just create contingency plans for maybe moving it, which is interesting, or everyone should just wear masks. Like, that works too.
I mean, someone should be using Dallas Stadium in the playoffs because they're not going to need it more than 1 week. Also, I just want to point out a commenter, Kyle Larson, fellow Undroppable, pointed out the Greendale Community College Human Beings. Currently rewatching Community right now, and that made me chuckle. If we can, I'm going to see if I can pull up their mascot real quick while you keep talking.
You should. I can keep talking about our last piece of news, which is there's been a lot of speculation recently about Jim Harbaugh, coach of the Michigan Wolverines. He led them in a playoff run for the first time in forever. They had a huge win over Ohio State. He's really been instrumental in making that program what it is right now. And there's a lot of talk that he could be exploring options to go into the NFL. There has been talk about the Raiders head coaching position. There has been talk about the Giants maybe having a head coaching position. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
Yeah, so this is the human being.
He is terrifying.
Yeah, well, they wanted to make it so it didn't have any racial stereotypes from any one race. So that is the Greendale human beings. Yep.
Good.
Just really great.
That's going to be in my nightmares. Going to be in my nightmares.
No, more like your dreams. You should see their school flag. Now, that's a school flag. That is a logo.
I still need to watch it. You told me to watch it a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't been able to yet. That should have been my quarantine show. You forgot to remind me. Tell me how it is.
I reminded you all the time, and then you just never did it. So I stopped
No,
reminding you.
you told me once. You told me
you
once.
a bunch of times.
No, you did not. Only once.
Okay, well, the flag is also great. I believe they have a Latin phrase on it. I believe it's like El pluribus anus, I think.
Good.
And yeah. Spoiler alert, like the flag looks like an anus. We can move on now.
I wouldn't have figured. We can. So yeah, there's talk around the NFL that there's a possibility that Jim Harbaugh might be coming into the NFL to coach. Possible landing spots: Raiders head coaching job, Giants head coaching job, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But yeah, he has been, like I said, instrumental in changing the Michigan football program. So I know there was talk about him leaving last year. He didn't leave. There's a possibility that this is only being used for leverage for Michigan to pay him more. Not really sure, but there is a possibility he transitions into becoming an NFL coach.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I think he should just stay in college.
Why?
I don't know. He just he strikes me as the kind of guy that just tires on people. Like not Urban Meyer level, but just stay in Michigan, man. Keep your khakis there. I don't know. They're going to pay you more money than the NFL will, so it's fine.
They probably will. Anyway,
college coaching jobs are ridiculous.
Insane.
When it comes to money.
Absolutely insane. We did mention it when we were talking about Jim Harbaugh, but let's jump into talking about the New York Giants for a little bit, because there's been a lot of speculation and rumors going around and everything. So you want to jump into it, or you want me to jump into it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that Joe Judge sucks. Adam Schefter reported that Joe Judge and Daniel Jones are expected to stay next year, but Dave Gettleman is expected to be relieved of his duties. Not fired in disgrace, as he should be, but relieved of his duties. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this in the Undroppables Discord at one point, and I mean, I think I jumped in. I just said, like, bad franchise gonna bad franchise. Like, there's a reason that bad franchises continue to be bad franchises, and it's because the people that make decisions continue to make bad decisions because they're the same people. Like, it's just Daniel Jones. I get. You've already signed him to his 5th year extension. Like, he's coming off an injury. He showed signs. You have no other plan right now. But like I don't get what they want what they think they're getting out of Joe Jones, because it's not the ability to win games, clearly. And okay, sure, not all coaches are, like the X and O's type of, like, really great, game designing type people. Like, that's why you hire coordinators. Fine, if that wants to be your argument. But then it goes into, okay, then what is he giving you? It has to be the culture and whatnot. And I know he talks a lot about the culture, but he talks a lot about the culture for someone that is so into the culture that he's building.
Yeah.
His culture sucks. I mean, the news report that came out, which is just hilarious, is that, like, former first-round pick Isaiah Wynn, I think his name is. I think he was a tackle drafted by the Titans like a year or two ago and bounced around the NFL already. He got away with just constantly sleeping through meetings, and he brought, like, golf clubs into the locker room. He refused to run laps during practice. Like, no, this isn't your, like, 44-year-old franchise quarterback. This is a dude you signed off the street. Like, no, that's not how you build culture. Apparently that report is fake. That's what I'm being told in the comments. Isaiah Wilson. I was close. I don't know if it's real or not, but either way, it doesn't surprise me. Also, one last thing before I let you go on whatever you want to talk about, because you're probably more passionate about this than I am. But his comment about he has people calling him saying that they wish they were still on the Giants. That one got me. That one killed me.
Players that are making more money.
Wishes they're still on the Giants.
He said they're players that are making more money that would take less money to be a part of the Giants again.
No, they wouldn't.
No, they wouldn't.
You had to overpay Kenny Golladay so that way you could pay him $500,000 per catch. Yeah. He has 34 receptions on the season. He's making like $18 million. Yeah. No, nobody wants to play there for less. Maybe like Eli Manning, but he's retired. It's ridiculous. Like, the dude, like, he doesn't have to be made a fool of, but he does it for himself, and it's just ridiculous. And I don't know if ownership keeps him. I don't know why. What is the reasoning there? I don't see the rational reasoning.
Yeah, me either. So I think he might genuinely be talking himself out of a job. I think the reports might be true that he was supposed to stay, and now everything he is doing seems like somebody who's about to get fired. Like, he was taking shots at the Washington football team during press conferences this week and now won't talk to the Washington media. He said that about ex-players calling him who say they would take less money to be a part of the Giants program again, which is, people fact check that, and there's only like 3 players that left and are making more money, and like maybe one of them would say that, the other 2 wouldn't.
And would they really go out of their way to, like, call?
No. He also said he was, like, making up some story about how when he was with the Patriots in 2018, how all of them thought they were getting fired, and everyone was like, no. There was, like, no talk of, like, the entire coaching, like, including Bill and everybody, apparently was going to be fired from the Patriots coaching staff in 2018. And they went on to go to the Super Bowl that year. And I don't know. He keeps talking, and he's never good. He also said something about he made comments about the 2019 Pat Shurmur's that everybody quit and everybody tapped and they stopped showing up to captains meetings. And Pat Shurmur said, obviously that's not an accurate assessment, but beyond that, I have no comment. So he's making up stories about ex-coaches and players and all of this. And Like, it makes no sense. He has a job, and he was told he was going to keep that job, and now he's just acting like a fool everywhere. And I don't understand how, when you're going to bring in a new GM, that you're going to keep this same coaching staff and have him leading it. It makes no sense. For somebody that talks about discipline and culture so much, those two things haven't changed. This team has no discipline. This team has horrible culture. And I don't understand how you can keep Joe Judge on. Like you said, I understand keeping Daniel Jones, especially if you're going to bring in a new GM. Maybe if you're going to bring in a new head coach, that you give Daniel Jones one more year. I also think that that is going to be something that is a little bit contingent on this neck injury that seems to be a lot more severe than anybody's let on. But I don't know. This organization seems wholly broken. And I don't know how they move forward with Joe Judge at the helm coaching this team that can't score a touchdown. Like, there's so many periods when they scored against, I believe, the Eagles, that they were like, this is the first touchdown in the last 2 games. Oh my God, 8 quarters. And then you have a game like this week that you can't even score 1 touchdown. Like, how do you go so often without being able to score a touchdown? And you have made stupid decisions about Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm and who's going to play, and leaving people in for too long when they shouldn't be, and Matt Pert and Nate Solder. Like, there are so many times where they have just made the wrong decision that it seems like it's just like so many fundamentals missing from this coaching staff, and him leading it stinks. He's not been good for this organization.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, when you hire a new GM, they don't want to get stuck with a coach that's already there.
Yes.
And unless Joe Judge does something to completely make you think that he's a completely different person a year from now, the GM is going to want to hire their own coach. So really, all you're doing is you're wasting a year. You're giving up your last ditch effort of figuring out what you have in Daniel Jones. Cause, like, you know, I'm not particularly, like, I'm not a huge Daniel Jones guy. I do think that he's probably better than we've seen with Joe Judge.
Yes.
Just based on how garbage everything else has been, because of both Joe Judge and Dave Gettleman and the team he's put around him. But, like, the reality is you're just wasting a year, and you're wasting a year of Saquon Barkley, who is, you know, I don't know what they're going to do with him. That is going to be very interesting, to say the least. But especially considering the fact that I believe you guys have 2 first-round picks because you got an extra one for trading back with the Bears. Like, just let a new GM do his own thing and let him get on the same page as a new head coach. I don't know. I don't see the point, because unless you are convinced that Joe Judge is going to be the guy to lead you to a Super Bowl, which I think if they don't fire him, that is what they're saying. That, or, I mean, they're just morons, which, to be fair, they could be morons. Like,
it's possible. It is possible with the Maras that they're big into, like, loyalty and, like, keeping it in the family and, like, all that kind of stuff. And it's possible that that's just why they're keeping him, and they hate to admit their mistakes, and to fire a 3rd head coach in, like, as many years would be a stain on their record, which is already stained. So
that is why bad organizations gonna bad organization.
Stay bad organizations. Like, the only person I want left on this coaching staff, I wouldn't mind if Patrick Graham stays, our defensive coordinator, who has done nothing but, like, battle this defense forward through so many injuries with pure grit, and a defense that was really good last year, lost some players, wouldn't have been as good, has put pieces together to be really good this year. Well, as good as they can be. They've taken, like, the 2nd most snaps in the NFL. So I think he's the only one I would love to stay. Everyone else can go. It's time to clean house for that organization.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I think I'll use this to kind of transition into our next topic, but, like, you look at them and you look at the way they've handled things and the way that they seem to make decisions. And this isn't really me being a homer. Like, this was something that I kind of learned a little bit about today. Like, not learned, but was kind of reminded. Like, since Jeffrey Lurie, the current owner of the Eagles, bought the team in his first full season in 1995, 2 franchises have gone to the playoffs more: the Packers and the Patriots. That's really good.
That is really good.
The head coach is hired, Andy Reid. Doug Peterson, Chip Kelly, and now Nick Sirianni, who's going to the playoffs in his first year. Jeffrey Lurie was not afraid to admit his mistake with Chip Kelly. Like, say what you want about Chip Kelly. He was awful at the end. He was really great at the beginning. And Jeffrey Lurie knew after year 2, like, this is going to be a problem or it's going to be the solution. Here is full control. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not going to I'm not going to joke around and see what might happen in another year or two. Like, he saw a fractured locker room and a messed up, team. And he said, the definition of his insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And that is the difference between a good organization or a well-run organization and a not well-run organization. So like, that's a stark difference. Like, thank God for Eli Manning, I guess, and those 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But I don't think that really excuses the overall choices that the ownership has made in that period of time. At least the way I have looked at it.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
But speaking of the playoffs, that kind of brings us into our last topic. And that would be the playoff picture. The way things are looking right now. Possible clinching scenarios, some interesting things to watch this upcoming week.
The last week of the regular season.
The last week of the regular season, week 18 of the NFL season. The first time we've ever had a week 18. It's very odd. I don't know if I like it.
Strange.
You want to start with the AFC or the NFC? How do you want to do this? You want to start with the NFC if we were just talking about the Eagles?
Yeah, let's talk about the NFC, especially because there are more clinched spots with the NFC right now. So let's head over to the NFC.
All right. Well, I'll just kind of run down the list, I guess, who's clinched and who's not. So the Packers they've clinched the division. They're 13-3, and they're currently the 1 seed. As a reminder, 7 teams make the playoffs, and there's only 1 first-round bye available, and that's to the first seed of each conference. The Rams are currently the number 2 seed, and they have not officially clinched the NFC West, I don't believe. They have clinched the playoffs. They are 12-4. The Bucs are the 3rd seed at 12-4. They've clinched their division. And the Cowboys have clinched their division and are the 4th seed at 11-5. The Cardinals are 11-5 and have clinched a playoff berth with the possibility to move, I think, all the way up to the 2 seed. It might only possibly be the 3 seed. I'm not exactly sure about the tiebreakers between them and the Buccaneers, but it'll come down to them and the Rams for the NFC West in this final week. And then we have the Eagles have clinched a playoff seed as well. I think they've technically clinched the 7th seed. I don't know if they can actually get to the 6th seed, which is really weird. But regardless, so 2 wild card spots are totally clinched. It's the other of the Cardinals and the Rams and the Eagles. And then in the hunt right now, we have the Niners and the Saints. And for the Niners, it is winning in. And I would imagine, without having it in front of me, that the Saints need a win and a Niners loss to make the playoffs. And I think in that case, the Eagles would move up to the 6th seed because they beat the Saints. They have the tiebreaker.
Yes. Yeah. So I know you said about the NFC West, the Cardinals clinched the NFC West division title with an Arizona win and a Rams loss. The Rams clinched the NFC West division title if the Rams win or tie or Arizona loses. So that it's just whoever wins. So
the Rams control their own fate.
Yes,
basically. It's a win and in, except it's a win in the 2 seed. And
like you said, the Niners need to win to get in, and the Saints need the San Francisco loss and to win to get in.
And officially, the Packers have clinched first round bye home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So, so not really as much going on. I feel like a lot for the NFC was really kind of decided in this past week.
I think the Eagles was you and I had talked about it beforehand, was I think the only big surprise of this group right now. I think the Niners being in the hunt, Niners and Saints were something that was talked about, not really that's a little bit of a surprise, but I think the biggest surprise in the NFC playoff berths this year is the Eagles.
Absolutely. I mean, regardless of what you thought about it to begin the season, like they started off, oh God, 2-5, something like that. And it didn't look good. And credit to Nick Sirianni and his coaching staff. Like he made a fundamental change in the middle of his first season as a head coach, which is, I don't remember the last time I've seen something quite like it. Like they are setting NFL records for rushing in, most consecutive games of like 175 rushing yards or, stuff like that. They're just breaking these records inconsequentially every week. And that's what I thought they should have been doing from the beginning. And obviously there's that, Philly Twitter is hysterical because it's just a bunch of people saying like, finally they listen to, sports radio who have just been yelling at them to run the ball, which to be fair, we've been doing that for the past 20 years. And I'm not normally a big proponent of that, but when your quarterback is Jalen Hurts, I mean, you're adding such a large piece of his game to the game plan at that point. And you can really use it to your advantage. You've got a really talented guy in Miles Sanders, obviously, who's injured at the moment, but former second-round pick J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is a blocking machine at wide receiver. Don't ask who he was drafted over. I don't want to talk about it. And don't ask about his receiving stats either. He's a blocking receiver.
Good.
That's what matters. But yeah, I mean, they turned their season around and credit to him for that. And, they're charging into the playoffs. I never would have. There was a part of my mind that thought, okay, they could make the playoffs. I never would have guessed they would have had it clinched a week before the end of the season. That's the most bizarre part.
That is very huge. And I think, like you said, it's a huge testament to the coaching staff and that they've kind of tried it all out. I think that's something I've really liked about the Eagles this year is that they've tried it so many different ways to figure out which way they succeeded, right? They tried it with no rushing the first, those couple of games where they literally didn't rush. They tried it with exclusively rushing. They've kind of created this formula from trying out a million different things and seeing what works best for their team and the identity of their team. And they've got it mastered right now. The Eagles are someone to really look out for in the playoffs currently.
And honestly, the defense too. Like, I was I kicked Jonathan Gannon in the nuts pretty hard earlier in the season. With my words, because I'm sure he's listening to this podcast.
He is.
I was going to curse, and I had to slowly get away from the curse as I was crafting the sentence, and it clearly didn't go well. But like he made a change. The biggest issue I had with him was he was married to a too deep safety look, which didn't, I understand why he wants to run that and the fact that he wanted to run it, but we didn't have the personnel to do it. And he finally, like around the same time that Nick Sirianni said, screw what I want to do, I'm going to do what's best for this team. Jonathan Gannon did a very similar thing. He moved the second safety down into the box, closer to the line of scrimmage. They shored themselves up against the run. We saw Fletcher Cox finally being, used in various ways, and he was able to kind of, catch some heat at the end of the season. And the linebackers have played a lot better as well, given the, the change in mindset or whatever that the team is doing. So again, I'm done talking about the Eagles now, I promise, until we talk about them again in a little bit, probably.
Yeah.
But
I think the biggest thing right now, just to mention about the NFC, the last few words for me, is that I think right now what it looks like, for me, I think the Saints might be the ones to get in. The Niners this week are playing the Rams and the Saints are playing the Falcons. So Saints have the easier matchup of the two. And it looks like the Saints are getting pretty healthy at running back. So that's something to be a little bit scared of if you're the Niners. I think the Saints have a better chance as of right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Niners are able to pull it out. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what the two of them do in these games. It's going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, I mean, especially just because knowing what the 49ers game against the Rams means overall. I mean, the Cardinals are playing the Seahawks at, any given Sunday in the NFL, but the Cardinals should probably beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks have not been particularly good, although Rashad Penny's been coming on as of late. So shout out to him, former first-round pick, running back. But, I mean, if the 49ers can pull off the upset and make the playoffs, like that also helps the Cardinals in a massive way. I mean, they can jump to having a home game in the playoffs, which all season, they were in the driver's seat for that one seed. So it would suck for them to have to fall all the way down to, a wild card team. But, a very wide range of outcomes right now for them.
I mean, that just shows how competitive that division was. That division was absolutely crazy this year.
I will say when we did a preseason predictions, me and Jax did on his podcast. I picked the NFC West to have four teams with 10 wins. So if the Niners win this week, that will be 3 out of 4. And honestly, I feel pretty good about that.
You should,
considering Russell Wilson died and Pete Carroll sucks. So
you need to go back on the show and like just go through everything you guys said and do a recap of who was right and who was wrong.
No, I don't want to because he was right about the Patriots, and I don't.
I know, and I remember how harshly you yelled at him. But that's a good segue for us to talk about the Patriots a little bit and the AFC playoff spot. So why don't you tell us what that looks like right now?
Yeah, so the AFC is a lot more exciting, honestly, and it's a lot later, which it has been for weeks.
And they have 2 more spots available.
Yep. So we start out with the Titans, who control their own destiny at the 1 seed. They're the 1 seed at 11-5, and they have clinched the AFC South. The Chiefs are currently in the 2 seed, and they've clinched their division. They are also 11-5. The Bengals are 10-6. They've clinched the AFC North. The Bills are currently in the 4 seed, and they have clinched a playoff berth. And then we have the Patriots at 10-6, also with a playoff berth clinched. So lots of things to talk about here. Obviously, they have 2 playoff spots open. I'm going to start with what I think is the most entertaining thing, which I was just telling you about before the podcast. So the Colts are playing the Jaguars. The Colts are in a scenario where they are 9-7. If they win, they are in the playoffs. That's simple. Easy. The Jaguars suck. But first of all, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville since 2014, which is ridiculous. I believe they were the Jaguars' only win last year in week 1, I believe. Or maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And then we have the idea that if they lose, so if the Colts lose, they can still make the playoffs based on who wins the Chargers and the Raiders game. However,
wait for it.
Since the Colts play before the Chargers and the Raiders, they are Sunday Night Football. If the Colts lose and the Chargers and the Raiders tie, they both make the playoffs and the Colts are out. So the discourse that's been around NFL circles, like Ian Rappaport was talking about it on Good Morning Football this morning, is if the Chargers and the Raiders chose to just kneel out the entire game, they would both make the playoffs. Yeah. And the reason from what he's hearing from sources that he's hearing from, the reason he doesn't think it's going to happen is because the question would be like, okay, well, like, how do we know you're going to do it? And it's like, what if we get to the end of the game and the Raiders are like, booyah, gotcha. And then they just throw a deep bomb and take the Chargers out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
That'd be awkward. That would suck. I don't think it'll happen. I think they'll probably just play a normal game.
It would be really cool though.
That would go down in legend in the NFL. That would be the most incredible thing of it. Like, I don't know if they can just agree to tie and then not play the game. I don't know if they legally could because of like TV rights. I don't know how that works. But that would be incredible. They just
have to stand on the field and like perform a talent show.
I love it.
But the Raiders, I don't know if you mentioned, the Raiders play at 1:00. So if they win, Colts play at 1:00.
Yes.
So they will know if the Colts win that it doesn't matter anyway. But if the Colts lose, they will know before they play the game.
Yeah. And so just to kind of sum that all up, Colts are in with a win. And assuming the Colts win, then both the Raiders and the Chargers are winning in. Neither of them can win the division. But yeah. The Raiders have a couple more complex ways to get in, given some other teams, but for the most part, all three of those teams are winning in. And that's kind of like, that's going to make up the last 2 spots of the playoffs. And once again, the NFL has done a good job of making sure that every team that's playing is going to have a reason to play when they play.
Yeah.
Sounds really stupid, but like, for instance, another really interesting thing is the top of the AFC on the complete opposite side. So right now, obviously, the Titans are 11-5, and they're in first place in the conference. But say, I believe it's if the I have the list here. So,
Tennessee clinches the number 1 seed, the first round bye and home field advantage with a Tennessee win, or Tennessee tie and Kansas City loss or tie, or Kansas City loss, Cincinnati loss or tie, New England loss or tie, or Kansas City loss, Cincinnati loss or tie, and Buffalo win.
Yeah.
So lots of scenarios.
Based on when those teams play, so yeah, the Titans play at 1:00. So they need more than just a Kansas City loss to clinch the 1 seed.
Yeah.
So the fact that the Chiefs are playing on Saturday just again helps to make sure that, like, for instance, if the Titans won, then the Chiefs couldn't be the 1 seed and they would have nothing to play for. But now, since they play before the Titans, obviously they want to win to have the opportunity if the Titans lose or one or many things happen that would allow the Chiefs to be able to be the 1 seed. So that's the biggest thing, is really the Chiefs and the Titans contesting for the only bye and playoff home field advantage as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Patriots can clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yep.
If they win, Buffalo loses or ties, Kansas City loses, and Tennessee loses, they clinch a first round in the playoffs. So, like, that's
Are the
somebody
Bengals the
who's
only ones that can't do anything? I think that's no. Here
is
they
that
are.
what our list
No,
says? Oh, okay.
the Cincinnati can also clinch the number 1 seed if they win.
Yeah.
Tennessee loses and Kansas City loses and New England
Yeah.
loses, or Buffalo
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm
It's
sure this is making for
wild.
great podcasting because this is so easy to
definitely.
keep track of.
100%. Make sure you
Super
have your notepads out, guys, and follow along with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hectic. And like even the Steelers still have a long shot chance of winning. They win, Colts lose, and that game that we were talking about doesn't end in a tie. The Steelers could be in.
Yeah, I mean, the
There's
Steelers and the
so
Ravens
much
are still
going
both
on.
alive.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
they're both alive to sneak into the playoffs as the 7 seed. Obviously, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Colts are all in winning in. And then all 5 of those top teams, I mean, they've all won their division with the exception of the Bills and the Patriots, which the Bills control their own destiny in the way that if they win the division, they get a home game. The Patriots need some help to get anywhere from the 5 seed to the 1 seed. And it's insane. I mean, I'm not sure the last time we've seen a final week with this much on the line for an entire conference. Like, especially given the fact that there's only one bye week, and the bye week is massive. The way that it lets your body heal and the tactical advantage it gives you, it is something worth playing for. And
home field advantage is huge too.
Yeah.
I mean, that plays such a big role. The players talk about it so often on how having a home stadium, especially in the playoffs, is a huge factor in outcomes. Like it really does affect them.
Do you know that do you know the only team to have been a home underdog in both the second and the third round of the playoffs after having a first round bye?
No.
I'll give you 3 guesses. Yeah, it's the Eagles. In 2017.
That is a fact you would know about
because
the
Nick
Eagles.
Foles was our quarterback. But you know what they say about underdogs?
What?
Underdogs are hungry dogs, and hungry dogs run faster. Thank you, Jason Kelsey. Anyway, sorry. There's going to be like 4 people out there that are like screaming and pumping their fists at that.
Yep.
It's
One of
fine.
them's in the
I
chat,
cater to
right?
those 4 people. What was that?
So one of them's in the chat, right?
Yeah, well, Jake, yeah. He's actually a Colts fan, but he at least understands it, so it's fine. But no, Jason Kelsey's just an absolute legend and a god among men. I don't know if you saw it was a highlight of him like just sprinting downfield and outrunning one of the Eagles running backs.
Yes, I did see that.
He's like a 33-year-old center.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If he doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I'm gonna riot. And you can believe that because I'm from Philly. But yeah, a lot going on the AFC side, not a ton going on the NFC side. I just want to give a shout out to the Bengals.
Do you have any predictions? Oh, go ahead. Bengals first, and then we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
They've been really fun to watch this season.
They have.
I like Joe Burrow. I love T. Higgins. I like Joe Mixon. Jamar Chase has been incredible. And shout out to Zach Taylor for just kind of figuring it out. I mean, they've just been a really good team. They've outplayed a lot of really good teams. Obviously, you can make excuses for the Ravens if you want, but I kind of just think they've been outcoached by the Bengals. I mean, they put up a lot of numbers against the Bengals, and that has nothing to do with, against the Ravens, and that has nothing to do with Lamar Jackson not being there. I mean, the numbers that Joe Burrow was able to put up were incredible. He has the right amount of swag to be where he is in the NFL.
I was going to say, did you see that tweet that says Joe Burrow is who the Browns thought Baker was going to be? Swaggy underdog college transfer turned number 1 pick who can elevate a franchise.
So I did not see that tweet, but I was literally about to make that comparison out loud. They have maybe the same amount of swag, except Joe Burrow has all the talent in the world to back it up. And granted, his weapons are amazing. I mean, his weapons are just absolutely fantastic, but he is just playing out of his mind. And I don't know if there's many guys in the NFL that I would take over Joe Burrow if I was starting a franchise like today. As my franchise quarterback. Say, if you gave me the prerequisite of it being 10 years, and we'll assume that Tom Brady's still playing, but just even more mobile than he is right now, but he's still playing at the age of 54. There's not many people I'd take over Joe Burrow. He says everything the right way.
He does. That was what I was going to say. He's such a good guy. He's great with the media. He's great with teammates. Every report ever is about how he's such an incredible teammate. I mean, and you have to remember, he's doing all of this coming back from an ACL injury.
He's only gonna get better.
No, exactly. This was a season where people were kind of wrote the Bengals off because he was returning from an injury and didn't know what Ja'Marr Chase was going to look like. But that front office and that coaching staff has given him all of the things he needed. And that's something you and I had talked about in the past with Ja'Marr Chase on how maybe he was drafted there because Joe Burrow wanted that, right? That they were giving him all of the pieces to be the most successful Joe Burrow he could be. And just everything about him exudes confidence and exudes talent. And I'm happy we got to watch it. This year was getting to watch Joe Burrow was so fun this year that watching him was something that reminds you and why you love football.
Yeah, and I think the next step for him and the franchise as a whole is definitely going to be can they maintain it? Because you see teams, I mean, it happens pretty often with young quarterbacks where you get this flash in a pan, and I say flash in a pan, but I mean more for a whole season. And it's will he be able to recapture that, or will the franchise as a whole, will it just kind of fall apart? I mean, the Eagles, 2017 with Carson Wentz, after we won the Super Bowl, Doug Peterson was famously quoted saying, "This is the new normal." It wasn't. It lasted a little bit longer, but they have such a young team though. That's the difference. They have such an amazing core, and it's just going to be about, okay, Zach Taylor, can you keep doing this? Joe Burrow.
I think they have a lot of money to play with too, right? Because they have several they have most of their key players are still on rookie contracts, Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase.
Joe Mixon might be the only offensive one that isn't, I think. Because all four of drafted? He's only a year old. Last year.
Yeah, so they have a lot of their core is on rookie contracts.
Yep. Yeah, it's
incredible.
I mean, if you're asking me to pick a quarterback and 2 wide receivers in the league for the next 5 years, I don't know who I'm picking over them.
Yeah,
on the same team, rather.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. But I will deflect the question to you. Do you have any predictions? Still a week out from the playoffs, but how about any prediction for who is going to, get these last spots? Maybe who makes a splash in the playoffs? I think next week we'll probably do next week. Yeah, we can talk about that later. But
we might have a guest for next week, but even so, we could release 2 episodes next week if we needed to. But
we maybe just coax her into doing it too. We'll see.
Into talking about it. But, we can talk about it. For me, I think the Colts are going to end up being in the playoffs in the AFC. The other spot, I think it's probably, I don't know, that Chargers Raiders game is a little bit scary, but I think it's one of them. I don't think any of the scenarios of Steelers Ravens, those require too many pieces. I think the Colts beat the Jags and get in, and I'm excited for that. I think the Colts have been a team that have surprised me, and I've loved to watch this season as well. For clinching that, I don't know. I think the Bills are going to end up clinching the the AFC East title. I think they're playing the Jets. If they were playing anyone else, it
Jets.
might be, they're playing the Jets. So I don't know. And the Patriots are playing the Dolphins, which is probably going to be a closer game. But so I think the Titans probably clinch the division, and because they're playing the Texans, and I think the Bills clinch the AFC East. I think to make a splash, I think the Eagles. I said it earlier. I think the Eagles could be a sneaky underdog. I've loved the Rams from the start.
Wait, sorry, did you say underdog?
Yes, I said underdog.
Underdogs. They're hungry.
Hungry dogs.
You know what they say about hungry dogs?
They run faster.
There we go. See, you did.
Yeah,
You made it.
I did.
Sorry, go on.
No, you're good. But I think the Eagles are someone to keep an eye on throughout this playoffs. And I've loved the Rams the entire way through. I think the Rams, like we've talked about, they put all their chips on the table, and the Rams are making a huge run for it. But I don't know. I think this is shaping up. This NFL season has been so crazy that this playoff, I don't see how it's not just as crazy as the regular season has been.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I might be more excited for the AFC side of the playoffs as a whole.
Yeah,
than I am. The Eagles. Like, I don't expect the Eagles to make a splash. It'd be great, but like, I have very little. Like, I'm not going to be disappointed if we're one and done. Like, because the fact that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni will be able to get playoff experience is huge.
Yeah, I forgot to look at. I mean, they Packers they would be as of right now playing the Rams.
Yes, sorry, yeah, they would be playing the Rams. And honestly, like, I don't even hate either of our matchup opportunities. I think technically it could be the Rams, the Buccaneers, or the Cardinals. I don't think any of those are bad matchups for the Eagles.
Yeah.
The toughest one's probably the Bucks because they have a really stout run defense, but they're also dealing with a crap ton of injuries on offense and an A-B situation. So, I mean, yeah, I also won't be shocked if the Eagles win in the first round. Like, the way that they're built is the type that's supposedly supposed to succeed in the playoffs. We'll see. Yeah, I think the AFC
predictions and
splashes. the AFC as a whole, I just think is going to be really entertaining to watch. I think we could get some really awesome matchups, and I think those matchups are just going, like, there's a decent chance we get Bills versus Patriots round one. That's awesome. We're probably going to get a Chiefs versus Chargers / Raiders. That's going to be sick. That's 2 division games, and then a Bengals versus Colts. Like, really, like, some really awesome matchups that I'm very excited to just sit down and watch football wise. Like, obviously those could all completely change because, like we said, anything can happen on the AFC side. I think the Chargers are better than the Raiders, but in a 1-game playoff, which is basically what this is, I'm not putting money on it.
No,
solely because it's a Lost you there for a second. I would love to see Justin Herbert and a healthy team in the playoffs this year. I lost Ashley completely. So hopefully you guys can still hear me, but I'll just keep talking about the playoffs until Ashley's back. And there she is. Hi, Ashley.
We almost made it.
Almost. We're back. But yeah, I mean, I would love to, I'm a Bills fan in the back of, like, my mind and behind the Eagles stuff. I do have a special love for the Bills, so I would obviously love to see them.
I placed a future bet on the Bills before the season even started to win the Super Bowl.
Well, you're probably winning, but it seems like they have more stuff to figure out than people thought.
They do.
And obviously, I still like Carson Wentz. I'm a big Jonathan Taylor fan, so I'm probably going to be rooting for Carson Wentz as well. But I think the Bengals could make some noise. And I think they could surprise some people. So
I hope so.
Also, I might be more than anything rooting for the Packers to win a Super Bowl. I don't really want Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl. I kind of don't like him as much as I used to because he's just kind of coming off as like a jerk.
Careful, he's going to insult you like he did to that reporter today.
I don't think anything's funnier than the fact that they draft Jordan Love instead of giving him a weapon. And he says, fine, I'm going to go win the MVP probably twice, and go to an NFC Championship game and possibly a Super Bowl this year. Like, honestly, because that will just be massively entertaining in the offseason. I just think it'll be hilarious. We're rooting for storylines. Yeah, I don't really like the Packers, honestly. I don't really like Aaron Rodgers at the moment, but, like, that's a very entertaining storyline.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, it's not the fans' fault. I like the fans. I like the team as a whole. It's just kind of Aaron Rodgers kind of being a jerk. But it'd be kind of cool to see that happen from a
Yeah.
storyline perspective.
Would.
But yeah,
that about wraps it up. It's gonna be exciting. Like I said, this season has been long and crazy and weird. Like, weird is the best way to describe this season, I think. And I don't, it's
tiring.
not nearly over yet. Very tiring. But it's not nearly over yet. The way everything is shaping up is that it's going to be a really, really interesting playoffs and really interesting off season. So yeah, Michael, why don't you remind everyone after a couple weeks off where they can find you?
You can still find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. Yes, looking forward to getting to work this off season at the Undroppables. Doing a bunch of stuff over there with probably a draft type thing, some rookie stuff. I don't want to give anything away yet, so I'm just gonna kind of
Be
tease it a little
ambiguous.
bit. Yeah. And then I produce the Undrafted podcast hosted by Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory. So yeah, what about you, Ashley? Where can I find you?
You can still find
On
me
screen,
at the best
not
place
in
on
real life.
Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley, on the Undroppables TikTok page at the Undroppables. All my content is with the Undroppables. You can find it on their website with a lot of other really, really great content and other podcasts to listen to. And you can find me here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Wednesday from now on. We did take a couple weeks off, I know, but we're very happy to be back. And like you said, we have already a lot of ideas for this podcast in the off season and throughout playoffs. We have a guest primed to come on in the next few weeks, who is a really, really interesting guest that I'm very excited to have on. And yeah, a lot of really good stuff coming from our team, from us, from this podcast. So make sure you're with us. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts. Following the Undroppables YouTube page with alerts on it, know when we go live on Wednesdays, and give us a like and a subscribe on wherever, and maybe a rating on Apple Podcasts. Those will really help us out. So what?
Preferably a good rating.
A good rating, a 5-star rating.
That'd be great, but like good is fine.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for joining us. We'll be back again next week. We hope to see you with us. Have a wonderful week of football.
Bye, everyone.